Rhys.
Chrissy.
Movies are back.
Yeah.
Movies are back.
Welcome to Movies Are Back. This is a weekly news and review podcast where we discuss civil chats about film and culture and video games, music. I don't know, just anything we really want to, but mainly movies. I'm your host, Christopher John, and with me is my co-host, Rhys Tarling.
How you doing?
Not only movies are back, but Gladiator is back. This is Gladiator 2 is out. I think it's in Australian cinemas this week. It's now out now.
We got it first, and everyone else is getting it end of November, I think.
Yeah, it's like, well, because in America they're wanting to do a double feature, Gladiator and Wicked, and they're calling it Glicked. It's kind of like they're trying to do the Barbenheimer thing, basically.
Oh, yeah.
I think that's what's going on. I don't know why we're getting it sort of early, but I'm not going to say no.
I think it makes sense. You got like one very kind of macho movie, and then you got like one Broadway-ish, fun, colourful musical thing.
It's well, I think that's the idea. Is they're wanting it to be sort of counter-programming. That one is more for the male crowd, and one is more for the female crowd. Even though I'm excited for, I'm still anticipating Wicked as well as I was excited for Gladiator. So
I'm a bit more excited for. Didn't care at all. Wasn't on my radar, but I've heard consistently good things.
Yes,
I'm at least curious now.
Cool. We'll do that one next week.
Yeah.
This week is Gladiator. Gladiator is back, and also guess who is also back?
Who?
Donald Trump.
Oh
yeah, baby.
America is back.
Oh, it's just they're so back. They're absolutely not going to completely catapult themselves into disaster within, I don't know, maybe even 100 days. But
back to driving the country into the ground.
It's fascinating. I mean, watching that whole. I mean, we're not going to go absolutely political, but it's definitely something that's big that's happened over the last 2 weeks, and that's. I don't know, spending that whole day where it was happening, I had so many weird emotions, because it's weird for us in Australia, like, we shouldn't care. People say, it's a US politics, who cares? But it's like, it does end up affecting us, because we want a good relationship with the US, and good foreign policy and shit, and it's just like, it's just annoying. Mostly.
I don't want to get too much into it either, but it is destabilizing for the world. I mean, they're a very powerful country, and,
it affects economic markets.
Yeah,
people start
especially
getting
with the things he wants to do, like the crazy tariffs.
Yeah, but also even like, the US dollar, how does that affect sort of economies as well? Like if he does some crazy policy change to the US and starts saying we want to go to war with this country, it's like that causes worldwide financial instability. I mean, look at the global recession. That was kind of started a lot by the US housing market going under, and then that affecting like the sort of domino effect. So it does end up affecting us. I just think that the whole celebrity angle of it does get into your brain, and you do have to, at a certain point, just kind of stop doom scrolling and looking through like news stuff and just look, whatever happens. You just have to do what you can.
I think it's almost impossible to talk about because their political landscape now, especially, it's almost become indistinguishable from like kind of vapid celebrity gossip.
Yeah.
But it's very important.
Well, they've been treating their presidents like celebrities ever since Reagan, who was a former actor. I think that's
JFK, you could even say.
Well, yeah, the television age.
Yeah.
I think that's where a lot of it starts. I think there's studies that showed that as soon as Americans could visualize presidential debates, that's when they started getting nastier. You'd seen like debates between, I think it was Nixon and someone else, where suddenly they're throwing like really harsh jabs at each other just because the camera's on them. And this is back in the 60s into the 70s and 80s. Like this is what the landscape becomes, and it just gets worse and worse from there.
You could even just go to the 2012 debate if you wanted, watch that, and then watch the one from like this year. And the de-evolution is crazy.
Yeah,
just in a decade.
It's bad when people are starting to reminisce of like, remember Mitt Romney?
I know.
Oh, that was so nice. It's like, wow. Well, anyway, but that's American politics. I wanted to at least address that. It's the elephant in the room more than anything. But we'll move on to what's going on.
What's going on?
We have a little bit of catch up. We've been away for a couple of weeks due to illness and scheduling, but that's fine.
Yeah.
First piece, AI bullshit.
Oh,
Yeah.
what do we got now?
Prime Video is apparently adding AI-generated TV recaps to their original shows. If a viewer has forgot where they left off, the recaps generate the imagery down to the exact minute of where viewers stopped watching. This kind of went under the radar a little bit.
That's such a waste of effort.
I know. It's so weird because that's such a lazy sort
Just
of thing.
do a recap.
Of like, oh, I don't know where I was left off. Don't worry, we'll be able to exactly replicate it for you. Or you could just not be lazy and scroll your cursor down to the little timeline.
How about we just stop making full TV episodes? Let's just chop them up and string them together so you can watch the TikTok version.
Exactly, and then do like half a screen, and the other half is like a running game from the 2000s.
So you can watch the full 40-minute episode, or you could watch the 3.5-minute version of the episode.
Yeah, exactly. I much prefer that.
Yeah.
Also, Coca-Cola created a very, very bad Christmas ad, all with AI imagery, and it looks horrendous. It's so obviously like something's wrong about like it looks sort of it's like 1080p sort of pristine video or whatever, but there's just something wrong about it. And that's my biggest problem, is that the extreme examples make it look horrendous and like everyone's faces are messed up, but it's those subtle ones that get me the worst, because I look at it and think something's wrong about this.
I think
this
that
instinctual thing that goes off in your brain.
That bodes so ill, because if Coca-Cola, like one of the most profitable, they have to be one of the most profitable companies in the world, right?
I think so, yeah.
If they're being cheap and using AI, who's not going to do that?
Well, yeah, and I think that's really going to start to separate the good from the bad, essentially. The bigger companies are going to... The biggest companies of the world, like Apple or Amazon or Coca-Cola, they will look for any reason to cut costs, even if their product is super premium. People are paying an enormous amount for the services that they provide. They'll still look for a very, very cheap way of doing certain things. And I think that will separate. If Apple decides to create an entire ad with AI, okay, you're now in that box. But if other companies say, no, we're going to make it a point of pride to not have any AI generation whatsoever, I think at a certain point, like, this is just me speaking, I would rather be more interested in those kind of companies, even if they're big conglomerates or whatever. But if they make that standpoint, that's more interesting to me. That kind of says something a little bit more fundamental about the sort of the company values more than anything. I mean, we talk about companies as if they're people. Yeah. Which is weird.
Well, I feel bad about it. I don't think it's going to go in that direction.
But we'll see how we...
This section's going to get longer and longer as the podcast goes on.
Yeah.
Soon the whole podcast will just be AI bullshit.
AI bullshit. Hey, we're talking about AI bullshit. It's the movie of the week.
Everything is AI. Our first review in this podcast, we'll eventually be reviewing an AI movie.
God, yeah.
If we haven't already, we don't know about it.
All right. Well, we'll move on to Quentin Tarantino, because at least he's not talking about AI, but he had a lot to say on the Bret Easton Ellis podcast.
Was that his Joker 2?
That, and also what he said about Dune. So with Joker, he loved it. He loved Joker 2 and said that Todd Phillips is the Joker. Saying, this is his exact words, he's saying fuck you to the movie audience. He's saying fuck you to Hollywood. He's saying fuck you to anyone who owns any stock at DC and Warner Brothers. Todd Phillips is the Joker.
Todd Phillips is not that smart. Todd Phillips thought it was a good movie, and it wasn't.
No.
That's really...
He thought it was a great idea to have.
I don't even really believe they meant it as a fuck you, really.
No.
I just think they wanted to do something different, and it just fucking failed.
Yeah, I think... Well, we talked about this in our Joker review. I think there is two schools of thought that are forming that, he did this intentionally. He made a bad movie intentionally, so that way he could cash $200 million and say, screw you, Warner Brothers, I'm out. Peace out, bitches. Like, there's that... Or there's the more educated school of thought, which is they tried to make something good and then couldn't because they're not good at what they do.
That's all it was.
That's it.
He didn't have the Scorsese template this time. He doesn't really care about the law.
No,
he wanted to prop up his Arthur Fleck mentally ill loner character at the expense of anything Joker related.
Yeah.
Which is what that movie is.
And I think he also I wouldn't be surprised if he partially hated how much people enjoyed the first movie for the ways that they did.
It could be like resentment there that like spilled into this, because it's like you know, it was supposed to be his original thing initially, and then he
Yeah.
had to make it a Joker thing.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that's all it is. And I think it's just an arrogant statement because it just feels just like contrarian
Yeah.
and weirdly backhanded.
I mean-
and you're giving him way too much credit. He's
Yeah.
not some like avant-garde filmmaker.
No.
He wanted to. I think it's kind of artistically pure. Folie du is because I think they really wanted to do something.
Yeah.
And sometimes I've seen it once. You know, there's some moments in it or some ideas where you're like, this is different. This could be really interesting. It just never materializes. But the movie itself is so boring that I think you kind of wonder, well, there has to be, how could they watch this and think it's not entertaining? There's something deeper to this. And it's like, no, it's just, they were arrogant and out of touch.
Yeah.
And they tried and they failed. It's really that simple.
Yeah, it's that simple. And also, I don't think it's that much of a, you know, oh, it's so good that he took Warner Brothers money and ran. It's like, if he did, that ended up coming at the expense of a lot of other filmmakers. We talked about this in the review, that for as much influence or much power as Warner Brothers wanted to give Todd Phillips and the filmmakers behind this movie, that came at the cost of films like Batgirl and Coyote vs. Acme and a bunch of other stuff at Warner Brothers.
He's talking about this like it's a Harmony Korine Joker movie.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's not.
Yeah.
Like, I would watch that, the Harmony Korine Joker movie.
I would too. Oh my god! But that movie wouldn't have cost $200 million.
No.
Probably would have cost $5.
And if it did cost $200 million, the Joker would actually be setting that money on fire. Like, they would actually have the money.
Yeah, it probably would have gotten even meta. Like, it would have just like like it would have been insane.
It would have been absolutely insane. And this wasn't insane.
No,
it was just trying to be different, and it failed.
It was almost trying to be too normal at a certain point. Like, it was just too boring to just be like, oh, look, he's on trial. Oh, and then we have to go through this process of having him be on trial. It's like, yeah, this is really, really interesting. I'm so happy to see the Joker just sitting in a courtroom and talking about stuff that happened in the first movie as if I didn't already remember what happened in the first movie.
And going back to prison.
Yeah.
And going back to the courtroom.
Yeah. And it's just like, this is it.
Yeah, it's not a punk anti-movie. I think
No.
that's obviously I really respect him as a filmmaker,
Yeah.
but I don't respect that opinion at all.
I think Quentin Tarantino is...
He's an obnoxious person.
he's just an arrogant person. I mean, he went on in the same podcast to say that he refuses to watch the new Denis Villeneuve Dune films. He said, I saw David Lynch's Dune a few times. I don't need to see that story again. I don't need to see spice worms. I don't need to see a movie that says the word spice so dramatically. It's like...
That doesn't even make sense to me.
No. Also, I mean, there's multiple things. One, you saw David Lynch's Dune multiple times. I've seen it maybe twice in my entire life.
I couldn't barely finish it.
The second time I watched it was only the second time I watched it, it was the fan edits that restored a lot of the deleted scenes. So it was
Right.
like a longer movie, which was better
Yeah.
by like a hair. It still wasn't a very good film, like
Yeah.
fundamentally. And you're talking about it as if it's like new, like the Harry Potter TV series, which is apparently going to be starting casting soon. I don't need to watch that. Like, I'll say right now, I don't need to watch that series because I've read the books, I've seen the movies, and I cannot imagine.
There is, sorry to interrupt, not to dive, we'll go back to the Dune point. There is one reason I will watch that show if they do in fact cast Mark Rylance as Dumbledore.
Yeah, I heard.
I will, if that happens,
I didn't put that on the news thing, but yeah,
I will watch it for sure.
That's been
for that.
reported.
That's too good to pass up.
It's good, but again, I don't know. One piece of casting doesn't instantly motivate me to say, yeah,
For me, it does
absolutely.
for this.
Well, it's just more about like the story angle with Tarantino and Dune.
Yeah.
Like, I don't get it. Even Denis Villeneuve was asked about his comments, and he said simply, "I don't care."
I love that. That's the
Just,
exact
I don't care.
response. Who gives a shit what he thinks?
No.
And also, it's not a remake of Lynch's Dune.
No.
That wasn't even really trying to appropriately adapt the book.
No.
Villeneuve was an appropriate adaptation of
If
the
it
book.
was a remake of David Lynch's Dune, then he would have had references to the movie. He would have had like Carl McLaughlin in a supporting role or a cameo or something like that.
Or they would have continued that story where he's just a straightforward, like, messianic figure.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's like, that movie was the opposite of the book's story, and Villeneuve actually adapted that story really well. And it didn't totally copy the book either. He made the genius move of making Zendaya's character the moral eye line.
Yes,
So
which she's
the
not
audience,
in the book, as far as I know.
she's not like that in the book. She's not against it.
No.
But in the movie, we get the sense that, like, through her point of view, that what's happening is kind of a tragedy.
Yeah.
And so that means villain, you can have his cake and eat it too, with the triumphant music and, you know, the spectacle of him defeating the houses.
Yes.
But through Zendaya's point of view, we can clearly see, oh, it's kind of like messed up what's happening, without being so explicit.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is those movies are brilliant, and yeah, who cares if he doesn't like them?
I know. It reminds me also of when the 1982 Thing came out. There's a lot of people criticized it then. Well, there's some critics who criticized it for, oh, well, isn't this just an inferior version to the 50s movie? Why would I need to see it again? Because I've already seen the 50s movie. It's like, well, it's not. It's not a remake of the 50s movie. It's another adaptation of the book, Who Goes There? If you knew that, then you wouldn't have had that opinion. It's a weird opinion that people have where they think that a new version of a text that they're already familiar with is instantly not valid because it was already done. It's like, or they're trying to do a new angle on it, a new adaptation, a new version of how that story could work in a modern context.
But Tarantino's point of view, I think, is that he's a guy who's seen so many movies, every kind of movie. He's has encyclopedic knowledge. I don't think he watches them like most people watch them.
No.
And so his opinions are strange.
Yeah.
Like the Joker thing, he's completely thinking about it at like a meta level.
Yeah.
Which is very debatable if that's even a real level, like we said.
Do you think he goes to a normal theater?
Yeah, no, I think he does. Yeah, I think
like actually sits down and
yeah, I think he does.
with a ball cap on and sunglasses.
Yeah, no, I think he does, but it's just his opinions are so niche, and because, you know, he's, when you look at something a million billion times, you get a bit more, and he's kind of a creative guy, and he's quite, you know, in love with himself.
Really? Yeah. this is Tarantino we're talking about.
Yeah, it just means it's like I have to take what you say with a grain of salt. Yeah. You know,
I always do.
I don't buy it like completely. I think you're kind of just, you're being yourself.
Yeah. Ridley Scott had a little bit of a pushback because he was asked, obviously he's doing press for Gladiator, and someone asked him for his thoughts about Tarantino retiring after his 8th movie, 9th technically, because he counts Kill Bill as one movie. Said, you know, oh, he's going to be retiring. What do you think? Ridley Scott, being Mr. Sir Ridley Scott, said, I don't fucking believe that bullshit. Shut up and go make another movie.
I agree with that.
Because as someone pointed out, like, Tarantino's going to be retiring after his next film.
Yeah.
But he's going to be he's going to be like 63. And someone said, if Ridley Scott retired at 63, he wouldn't have made Gladiator and literally every movie he made in the 20th century.
I think it's okay that he retires, but what I hate is, like, he's making it this grandiose thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, I'm going to retire.
Yeah.
Because people lose their juice at a certain point. Look at these directors. He won't name them, but he's like, they just lose the juice. That's not going to be me. I'm going to retire here.
I don't even know who he's thinking, because I thought about this. Like, the only directors I can think of that, quote, lost the juice towards, like, the sort of the latter part of their life is, like, Billy Wilder. Like, I definitely think he's thinking of Billy Wilder, because Billy Wilder was incredibly successful for being a screenwriter in the 40s and a great director into the 50s and 60s. But then he ended up having some monetary issues. He couldn't get a lot of financing for his films in the 70s. But that wasn't his fault. That was the movie culture around him changing and kind of slowly forcing him out. Like, he still stayed in Hollywood and kept trying to make stuff happen. I think he also tried to make Schindler's List happen at one point.
Yeah.
And he presented it to Spielberg, and Spielberg said, oh, I'm sorry, Billy, I'm already doing this.
It's annoying.
I'm already going off to do it. And
it's just the annoying ego show of it. Like, if you feel like you have no more story to tell, or you'd rather write books, just, like, do it.
Yeah, I know.
Like, why do you have to announce it, and then you put all this, like, expectation on your last movie?
Yeah.
And it's just, you know, it's so needless, and it just feels like a jerk off.
I don't think it even makes his career going back feel better. I feel like it would make it, for me at least, I would watch his films, and then if I know, oh, he only made, like, a couple more after, it's like, oh, really? Wouldn't you keep going? Because it's really, really good. I want to see what more he could do into a latter part of his life. Imagine, you know, Scorsese and Spielberg, if they said, you know, after they hit 70 or whatever, we're retired, but they've made some of their arguably best films within the last couple of years, and they're continuing to make very interesting stuff
Yeah.
and getting a lot of play.
I mean, everyone's different.
I know.
You know, it could be that. And, you know, like I said, it's fine if he wants to retire and he genuinely feels like, well, I don't want to go in circles. I've said what I want to say.
Yeah, no.
It's like, just do it. Like, why? It's just the announcement of it.
Yeah,
Like,
and he was trying to make that movie, but then he cancelled it, and it's kind of dragging that process out of, oh my god, his last movie, it's getting further and further away, so it creates this mythology. It mythologizes.
I feel like he's trying to, like, create a mythology rather than just letting it happen with his movies. It's obnoxious.
I mean, talking about retiring, we'll lead this into a big sort of chunk about Marvel news. This is more recent. Denzel Washington says that Ryan Coogler is going to be writing a role for him in Black Panther 3, which he confirms will be one of his final few films that he'll do before officially retiring. So he wants to do that. He wants to do a movie about Hannibal. He wants to do the High and Low remake with Spike Lee. So that will be a reunion between those two.
Cool.
I think it'll be the first time they worked together since, I think, Inside Man was the last time.
Yes, that was a good movie.
Yeah. And he also wants to do Othello, which absolutely could.
I loved his Macbeth. So.
Tragedy of Macbeth was amazing.
Yeah.
So that kind of works into sort of retirement news. Marvel news in general, we had a lot of first new looks at a lot of Disney Plus stuff.
Yeah.
That is all coming out next year. So we've got a new trailer for Daredevil Born Again, sorry. That's now confirmed to be out in March. Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man. It's kind of changed a little bit from what we initially thought it was going to be, because it's a 60s influenced Spider-Man series, but set in a type of prequel world before Homecoming, but not
It's
canonical.
not. It was initially going to be a prequel to Homecoming.
He's got the same sort of early suit.
They're not. It's a completely different universe.
Yeah, but also the art style has changed, because I think the early concept art was making it look specifically like the Steve Ditko, Stan Lee era.
I'm really looking forward to that. It looks quite fresh and cool.
I hope it's good,
and it looks like it's not trying to just do Spider-Verse. Like, it looks like its own thing.
Yes.
But it's still, like, fun and creative and
this will
like,
be the
bright.
first. This will be the first animated Spider-Man
Who
series.
voiced Spider-Man in that?
I don't know. I haven't looked that up.
Because they've announced other voice casts, but the Charlie Cox is going to be Daredevil in it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. They did. Well, yeah, I like this idea though, that it's going to be having some MCU obviously references and obviously like characters that might pop up, but it doesn't specifically have to be in the MCU, because I think they also said that Norman Osborn's going to be in it. We know he's not a character in,
well, exactly.
in the MCU.
Yeah, and Norman Osborn's going to be his mentor, which is like
exactly.
crazy.
That's really different. I like the idea of it just being do your own thing in your own little pocket universe. That's fine.
And Daredevil Born Again, this is a funny chicken and egg thing, because I can tell you now the story they're doing in Born Again, that is from a comic that came out, a comic run that came out after the Netflix show. And I remember reading that comic run and thinking, this is basically season 4 of the Netflix show.
Wow. There you
and
go.
now they're actually doing that as season 4.
Yeah, they had a first look at the villain Muse with blood,
really cool villain,
eyes.
very scary.
Very interesting look there.
And the things they do with Fisk, it's in that comic run, it's like the best thing they've done with the character in ages.
Is he running for president, or is he actually the president, or something like that?
He actually becomes mayor of New York.
That's right.
And he has like an anti-vigilante task force.
Yes.
And
he's been mayor in the comics for a while now, I think.
Yeah,
he's done
for
it before.
years. And I remember in that story, when he's campaigning to become mayor, he meets this cabal of billionaires. They make him look like pretty small.
Yeah, okay.
Like, he feels nervous around them.
It feels I don't know, maybe when they wrote that idea, they're like, oh, that seems a little ridiculous, don't you think? And then you look at like actual US politics, and you look at like, was it Mayor Eric Adams and all the shit that he's doing in New York? It's like, oh no, this is actually almost a toned down version of reality.
They actually make his characterization kind of closer to D'Onofrio's as well. Because I won't say too much, but in the comics, I'll spoil this a little bit. It's not a big deal.
That's fine.
He's at like a fundraising bit with the billionaires. And one of them like embarrasses him. So like he fucking just like murders this billionaire in the bathroom.
Oh, yeah.
And there's like blood everywhere.
Yeah.
And then he realizes what he's done, and he's like nearly crying, and he calls Wesley to help him deal with the problem.
What?
It was like wow, that's like a D'Onofrio kind of moment.
Yeah,
it's different from
see that happening in the series.
Yeah,
Well, there you go.
It will, yeah.
Wow. There's also first trailer for Ironheart. Looks really cool.
Looks pretty cool.
I like that they're obviously putting a little bit more money into it. Visually, it looks really, really neat.
Yeah.
I'm still on this. I have this thing with Ironheart where if you want her to be new Iron Man in the Marvel Universe, why is she just getting a TV show? Like, she had a cameo role in, well, not cameo, but sort of like a
Supporting role
in Wakanda Forever, which was fun. And I think that should blend into a proper movie, whereas a series, I think, still has this moniker of being sort of a little bit of a sub-level, like a little bit of a lower tier down from, actually having a movie out in theaters that normal people can go and watch just casually. I think the MCU shows...
But this show was made years ago.
I think, they filmed it in 2022. I think they were doing reshoots into last year.
Yeah, no,
so.
It's been on ice for a while.
Yeah,
I don't know what that means.
I think it might be a more of a programming issue, because I guarantee they probably would have wanted it to be out this year.
Yeah,
but
definitely.
they thought, we asked maybe a bit too much of the audience in 2023, so we want to pare back, and we only had one movie and, was it 2 shows? Oh, we're going to get What If, the final season this year.
Yeah, I watched the first season. Not very impressed.
Second season was awful.
I heard. I don't like that animation style.
No.
I think it's very soulless and ugly.
And the trailer for this new season feels very desperate, because they're like, hey, look, Storm's here. She's wielding Mjolnir. It's like, wow.
That's stupid.
We're going to introduce Storm.
I mean,
in What If.
The way they've approached these what if questions has been so nonsensical.
I know.
Like, what if Black Panther was Star-Lord? And I'm like,
I thought
what?
that episode was fun, but it was more of like a fun sort of, okay, that's cute. But that was like the second episode.
But it's
and then it didn't go anywhere after that.
Yeah, they do the most not interesting, but the what ifs aren't like, what if this character did something differently? It's always like just a random scenario.
Well,
what if Killmonger was Tony Stark's friend?
Yeah,
and I'm like, in what world would that have happened?
The second season has what if Hela went to Earth instead of Thor, but then she meets Wenwu from Shang-Chi.
Random.
And
it's like they pull it out of a hat.
Yeah.
Like, in South Park, they mock the Family Guy writers with the
exactly.
seals and the balls.
Think of that.
It literally feels like the premises are like seals picking random lotto balls.
This new season has Shang-Chi, but instead he's a cowboy.
Honestly, it feels like a chat GPT came up with these ideas.
It's so boring. So when they say it's going to be the final season, I'm like, good. Awesome.
Yeah.
They also first trailer for Marvel Zombies, a show that should have come out many years ago, but is only just now coming out in 2025.
Are they doing the same animation style as What If?
Yes.
All right, that sucks, but it's TVMA, so at least it's going to be bloody.
Do you know who's going to be introduced in that show?
Oh, who?
A What If version of Moon Knight, who will be Blade, voiced by Mahershala Ali.
That's so insulting.
So instead of his movie debut, he's going to be the voice of an alternate version of Blade in a Marvel zombie series.
I'm going to say something. I'm going to say something controversial.
Please
now.
Go ahead.
They don't want a strong Black American on his own to be a hero.
It feels like that sometimes.
They'll let Black Panther's African. He's not American.
What about Captain America?
But he's taking the mantle, and it's always like, well, you're not Steve Rogers.
He's like
I mean, on his own steam. That's why there was that rumors about like, oh, Blade's daughter, or whatever.
Yeah, there was like there was a script that went around that was like about women who interact with Blade or something like that.
It's because this premise is not hard to do.
No,
and
it's Blade.
They don't want a strong black man on his own who's not getting a mantle to just be a hero.
They think that's too threatening?
I don't know what they think, but they don't want it.
Interesting.
I'm yet to see an argument that disavows that.
I think it's just because, I think with the Blade movie, they keep saying it's going to happen, and they keep saying, Mahershala is still on board, it's just more of a scheduling thing. We wanted to get it right or whatever. It's like, look, I still have the faith that Marvel has, to this point, to this day, only ever had one project completely fall through. From everything they've ever announced.
What was that?
It was Inhumans.
That's right.
Where they announced it was going to be a movie, but then they went, hell no, get that out of here, make it a TV series and cancel it after 8 episodes. Just leave it alone, please.
Yeah.
That was the only thing. They announced Armor Wars, and we've had no movement on that, but we've had no cancellations on that. They just said, we'd like to do it. It's on the cards. It's over there. We'll see how we go, basically. But that's it. They've never confirmed it's absolutely coming out. The release date's now. I think the problem with Blade is that Mahershala Ali came to them and said, I want to be Blade. And they went, right, we did not think about that, and we have no plans to put Blade into the MCU.
They could
but
do
now
it.
we do. Shit.
They could do it. They could do it.
Can they? Because they made it once in 1998. That was great. And I guarantee that every time they come up with a script, they go, oh, the first movie already did that. Moving. Like, they keep trying to find a new way of doing it. But I don't know if they can.
There is a weird political thing where, like I said...
I wouldn't be surprised, to be honest.
I don't even... It might even be unconscious. But there's no reason this should be happening. Like,
no, it is weird that it's happening to this point.
To this point, it's like, I am suspicious.
They dragged their feet over the Black Widow movie.
That's what I mean. That's another thing. They don't want like a woman leading her.
And then they released it on Premier Access as the first Marvel movie out of the pandemic.
Yeah.
To the point where no one watched it because it was like, we're still in the pandemic. We don't want to go out to the movie theaters.
Yeah, but that's okay because it was a white woman. All right.
Yeah, well, they're like, oh, don't
Captain
worry.
Marvel.
Yeah.
White woman. I'm telling you, there's weird racial shit going on.
I mean, look, it's Disney where they want to feign the idea that they are.
They're like, how can we sell?
informed.
No one in China will watch Blade.
Oh yeah, that's right. I mean,
No one will watch
look at what
this.
happened with John Boyega in Force Awakens, where they removed him from
That's
the
what
Chinese
they're
poster.
thinking of. They're like, no, they don't want to see a black
You know
American.
what? The more you say this, the more I'm convinced that you're probably onto something here.
They'll never admit it.
Yeah,
It will never be admitted, but I'm telling you, that's what it is.
There was new looks also for Eyes of Wakanda, which is like an anthology type
that sounds
series
cool.
about different Wakandan warriors crossing the planet to find Wakanda's artifacts that were stolen from them.
It's like you'd do like a Tomb Raider thing. That
Yes,
sounds
something
awesome.
like that. Completely different animation style.
Cool.
Something that's...
Is it 2D?
No, it's 3D, but it looks kind of like what they've done for Arcane on Netflix.
Oh, that's sick. Okay,
Yeah.
that
a little bit of
show is
influence
awesome.
there, I would
Yeah.
say. And also Wonder Man.
You know what's funny? When I first heard that, I didn't know who Wonder Man was.
No.
And I was kind of like, whatever, sounds stupid.
What's Wonder Man? That
And
sounds
then
weird, yeah.
I saw the idea of it all, and I was like, oh, interesting. Okay, I'll
Yeah.
watch it.
Because it's got Yahya Abdul-Mateen
Because
II.
he's not a superhero. He's an actor playing a superhero
Yes,
in the
Simon
Marvel
Williams,
universe,
yeah.
right?
Yeah, he's in the it's weird because it's kind of like that She-Hulk thing where he has a bit of like the sort of there's a meta angle to it. He doesn't break the fourth wall, but he's an actor within superhero projects inside a superhero's world. So in the series or in the trailer, he's teaming up with Trevor Slattery, Ben Kingsley,
That's cool.
who's going to be his acting coach.
Yeah.
And it looks very fun.
Yeah.
I like the idea that Marvel television can have your sort of bigger, sort of blockbuster type shows like Ironheart, your more street level type things, very, very dark, like Daredevil Born Again.
Yeah.
It's more family friendly or sort of like bigger animated stuff like Spider-Man, What If, Zombies, but then also something like Wonder Man where it's, hey, let's carve out our own little world over here that's going to be relatively cheap. We don't have to have big explosions or superpowers or whatever.
Yeah.
We can just do our own thing. It's kind of like what happened with Agatha All Along, where that show is the cheapest Marvel show they've ever produced, live action.
Oh, really?
Because
Yeah.
they didn't need to have giant set pieces.
But by all accounts, that's one of the creatively best ones.
At this point, yes, we'll discuss it a little bit later in the show. But yeah, so that's Marvel stuff. A lot of stuff that came out. Also, new trailers for Thunderbolts and Captain America: Brave New World. Hopefully, they're good.
Brave New World, I have a bad feeling about
Brave
that.
New World. It's the reshoots.
It looks so tepid.
It's very CGI heavy in the trailers, which doesn't make. I mean, look, it's Marvel. They're always very CG heavy.
The trailer, that trailer itself was very well cut.
Yes,
It was very like, ooh, what's it about? It was intriguing. But I am just hearing the movie's not good.
Yeah, there was a lot of reports, rumors, and that sort of
I'm
thing.
hearing Wonder Man's good, actually.
Yes, I think
People have said...
I think there's more hype now for Thunderbolts. After that new trailer came out, people were looking at it thinking, huh, this looks really good. I don't know. I talked to my brother about this.
Yeah.
And normal person, normal
just
audience
a guy
member.
off the street.
And
with
he
his
just
stuff.
said, Thunderbolts, yeah, looks
Yeah.
pretty good. I'm like, all right. That's an endorsement right there.
Yeah, no, I'll see that.
We'll move on to Star Wars, big sort of Star Wars stuff that happened. It was a new trailer for Skeleton Crew.
Yeah.
Looks very cute, kind of Goonies-esque. We'll see how we
Yeah.
go with that one. Simon Kinberg is apparently going to be writing episodes 10 to 12.
Jesus Christ.
Simon Kinberg, the
Way
guy...
to scrape the bottom of the barrel.
The
Are
guy
you
who
kidding?
wrote Dark Phoenix twice and fucked it up twice, whose only good movie, look at his entire filmography of things he's actually written, the only good thing that he's ever had his name, screenplay by Simon Kinberg, is Days of Future Past, which in all fairness, it is a miracle that movie is good, because it's directed by a sex pest, written by someone who, for the most part, has only lucked himself into Hollywood.
From what I've kind of heard, actually, Simon Kinberg ghost directed a lot of that.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Because he was off his face off painkillers and disappearing.
Yes.
That's why they eventually gave him Dark Phoenix.
I think he also ghost directed
Apocalypse 2.
Yeah, that's right. Well,
That's why they...
He's got friends. That's what it is. He's got friendly
and
sort of
they
stuff.
were like, oh, he can competently shoot the movie while he's fucking in a ditch somewhere.
That's why he also ghost directed.
Fantastic Four.
Yeah, the reshoots for Fantastic Four.
I say this without rancor. He is the definition of a hack, and
he's failed upwards more than anything.
Yeah, and they've hired him for these movies because he won't say no to their notes.
Yeah,
he'll just put whatever they want, and
good.
he'll get it done on time.
Yep.
And it won't be like terrible.
No.
It'll be very average.
And that's a problem when it said Simon
That's
Kinberg,
why I
I'm
was like
really?
Deflated. No, it makes sense from their awful point of view.
And they also want Sean Levy to direct a Star Wars movie. And nothing against Sean Levy, like he's a fine guy, but he's not that much of a truly distinctive filmmaker. He's a journeyman director.
He's a journeyman.
Yeah.
But he'll get it done because he probably gets those movies done under budget, on time, little fuss.
Yeah, exactly.
So it feels like you really spent all this money to drive it into the ground, and now just to pump them out without fuss.
Yeah, there was like a story that came out, source familiar with the development process, that said Star Wars is a nostalgia-based enterprise, and they are running out of ways to create nostalgia.
I saw that line, and I was like,
"That's it."
That is highlighted completely what's wrong with their approach.
I mean,
they thought they had to mine nostalgia to generate stories.
Yeah.
They couldn't do any world building and generate new stories that build upon themselves.
Yeah.
They were just like, we have to mine it.
Yeah.
And then eventually there's nothing left because we've plundered it. And now we don't know where to go.
Yeah.
And that's where they are.
I mean, look, Andor Season 2, that's coming out. That's
Can't wait.
Top of the list.
Yep.
Looks amazing.
Yes.
That's going to be out in April 22nd.
It's almost a foregone conclusion. It's going to be great.
Yeah, because they put... Again, this is what happens. And I've said this before. This is what happens when you instead of taking whatever new writer or new director is really hot on the presses, like what they did with Colin Trevorrow, of like, oh, look, he made Jurassic World. He should make Star Wars.
Yeah.
And then they fired him because he was probably bad at it.
Yeah.
Or, let's get, what's his name? Who directed Fantastic Four? Josh Trank.
Oh, my God, that's right.
Let's get him to do a Boba Fett movie. Turns out Fantastic Four is bad. So we'll fire him. They're just grabbing whatever. And they said that Taika Waititi's doing a Star Wars movie. Patty Jenkins is going to direct one. Sean Levy wants to direct one.
Ryan Johnson was going to have his trilogy.
Ryan Johnson's going to have his trilogy. David Benioff and D.B. Weiss are going to have a trilogy. Kevin Feige wants to produce one. And I think the more definitive sort of, we want to make this happen, this is an actual story, there's confirmed about this. Shamin Abad Chenoy wants to do the Rey movie, and James Mangold wants to do his new Jedi, like an old 25,000 years in the past story. The difference between, I think, those projects are, they've actually said what the story is, rather than a Star Wars movie, which essentially boils down to, we had a meeting with them, and they want to do something. We'll try and make it happen. My problem is that Marvel has probably had exactly the same meetings with probably exactly the same people. They've all talked to each other. It's all Disney. They're all in the same building, probably. The difference is that Marvel doesn't announce that shit.
I know.
They wait until Comic-Con or D23 to say, hey, guess what? Surprise! We're doing this show or this story. And not just we're doing this, but here's your writer, here's your director, here's your cast, here's the story, or here's a concept art or something like that. They'll be so concrete with that. They'll be very protective of that. They won't let rumors and leaks persist to tell the story for them. But Star Wars lets that shit happen so many times.
They are so reactive over there that I'm actually so surprised they didn't can the Mandalorian movie after season 3 was received so horribly. I think the movies are in trouble too. I mean, there hasn't been a positively received Star Wars movie since...
Like, overwhelmingly. I mean,
since Rogue One.
Yeah.
Like,
but that's the thing, like, at least, Solo didn't do too well.
No, it did horribly.
No. And I
tanked.
I think the movies, you need to put a little bit more care into it. And the fact is that they've said that there are multiple projects that are apparently going to be involving Rey as the main character. but no one's talking to each other. So you've got Simon Kinberg, who's apparently writing episodes 10 to 12 or whatever. We'll see how that goes.
I mean, is Rey going to be the character in those?
Apparently they want to make her like a side character. It's like, but
What?
she's not a side. She's Rey. She's the.
I
They
thought she was
literally
the main character.
The last movie was literally
Yeah.
here you go. Here's the literal torch, i.e. the lightsaber. We're passing it to you. Go ahead. And then they apparently want the next movie to go. All right, go away. Now it's time for the other guys.
Her story barely got a chance to be told
Exactly.
in that trilogy.
Which is why when I heard about, they want to do a Rey movie, I'm like, sure, they don't have
Yeah.
to make that episode 10. Make it her. She's on a weird journey off to a different part of the galaxy and she's on her own thing.
Yeah.
Fine. Do that. I'm more interested in that. But why are you wanting to do that? But then you're also telling like 2 other people, write your version of your Rey story. What, shouldn't you communicate with the person who's already trying to do it? Shouldn't Simon Kinberg be writing the Rey movie?
But this is
And
Kathleen
communicate
Kennedy's fault. So
Is
she should be coordinating this. She's in charge of
there
it.
you go. I think it's just this sort of
And she said something stupid like, "Well, we don't have source material." I'm like, you have a million books. You've
Yeah, she
actually
did say that, didn't
they've
she?
actually used that source material to make the Timothy Zahn character. What's his name? Thrawn.
yes, exactly. When they've informed that, yeah.
And it's like, yeah, you plundered those books to make watered down versions. So
I think
obviously
it still goes down to why are they letting talk of this spread so much? That I think is the problem, is you're letting people create these narratives, which, by the way, might not even be the case. The case might have been that Simon Kinberg is in talks to. He's circling it, or maybe he will be writing it, but we're not too sure if we're going to go forward with that. That's their priority to deal with behind the scenes. Why are we hearing about this? Why are you letting people like us run rampant and speculate and create narratives that, she's running into the ground? Maybe she's not. We don't know.
I think they are.
But
I
I
think
think-
it's where there's smoke, there's fire.
And I think that's the problem, is that by letting this go out,
Do you think a healthy studio produces something like The Acolyte?
Well, I think The Acolyte was more of that. To me, spoke to, we took a shot with this creative. It didn't really work, but the problem was we also told them you'll be able to tell your story. Oh no, actually you can't. It's
I don't know.
like,
That might have been her story.
I think that was entirely her way of doing things. She wanted to make that show the way that she did, and it feels like that. It doesn't feel like something that Disney got their hands in or whatever. But the problem was it didn't really work. The other side is that they
It
promised
should
her.
never have been made.
I think it was a cool idea, premise-wise. We talked about
Premise,
this
but
before.
premise. But then you see these scripts,
Yeah,
and
I
you're
think
like, "What the fuck is this?"
where's the sort of, not a creative control, but the sort of pass
The
over to say-
guardrails,
Yeah,
Then
again,
they don't exist. It feels like.
it's not exactly like Marvel is Teflon here. They've still
No, I'm not saying Marvel's doing well at the moment.
I think that's
but
the problem, because you're talking about Marvel and Star Wars. They're both Disney companies.
Yeah.
So they
But
naturally compare.
Lucasfilm runs the Star Wars stuff.
Yeah.
and
But
they're owned by the same conglomerate, but
but
they're separate.
They still have to obey by Disney shareholders.
But with Marvel, you can pivot more with the genre,
Exactly.
and the tone.
You can do
you can do Daredevil Born Again if
Yeah.
fucking Secret Invasion PG-13 crap isn't working.
or we can do Wonder Man, where it's this weird little
meta
own thing. Yeah.
yeah, and Agatha, which is completely different, right?
Yeah.
But with Star Wars, you actually can't really pivot much with the tone at all.
No.
Like, not really, So, because there's a very set idea of what Star Wars is and isn't, and what they're trying to do in that sandbox of what we think Star Wars should be.
Yeah.
It's just not working at all. So it's like, well, no wonder they don't know where to go. I feel like they've salted their earth almost completely.
We'll move on from Star Wars because
Yeah.
it's just going off the rails.
Yeah.
Christopher Nolan news, a little bit of stuff. Lupita Nyong'o is confirmed to star in his next film.
Cool.
Which, as someone pointed out, that's a great pick because she has only been in 2 movies this year and they have both made quite a bit of money.
Was
She
that
is
Quiet Place? And
Quiet Place Day 1 and Wild Robot.
oh yeah,
Voice of that.
Cool.
So she's got 2 $200 million plus grossing movies. She is basically like a secret star where she appears and people go, "Oh, I like her. Oh, she was
she
in
has
that."
a movie star thing about it.
Exactly. So I think her starring, hell yeah. I mean, she's a black woman starring in a Christopher Nolan movie. I'm there for that, absolutely. And it's now also going to feature Zendaya and Anne Hathaway. So we've got Tom
Oh,
Holland.
Anne Hathaway's coming back. She's been in a couple Nolan movies. hasn't she?
Yeah, Dark Knight Rises, Interstellar.
Yeah.
It's actually been about 10 plus years since she's been in Nolan films. That'd be... Oh, we don't know what the movie's about, but cool.
It's kind of weird to think of Zendaya in a Nolan movie.
I think it's going to be very weird to see her and Tom Holland in a Christopher Nolan movie.
Yeah, it would be weird.
But cool.
In a good way.
I mean, that's great.
Whatever he does, I'm there.
I still think it's very nice. I'm
Can't
there
wait
for it.
I can't wait to hear what the log line is. You know.
Yes. Dwayne Johnson is also a fan of Christopher Nolan. Did you hear about what he said about...
Yes, I did. It was
For
so.
those who don't know, he confirmed that the peeing in bottles thing that was rumored, he says, yeah, that just happens sometimes.
No
I guess.
explanation.
No explanation
Like he didn't
whatsoever.
explain why he doesn't go to the toilet.
No, he just says that as the most normal thing ever. He says that he saw Oppenheimer in the same IMAX theater and seat that Christopher Nolan uses to watch his films and said, I was thinking, holy shit, Red 1 on this screen with this technology, it's going to be game over. Red 1, his new movie, is at 32% on Rotten Tomatoes and is currently bombing its way into oblivion.
He was right about one thing. It was game over.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, my God. We could have done a podcast on it, but I think we both just
can't watch it.
No.
I mean, I can tell you what it is without having seen it.
Exactly.
I can tell you exactly
It's
what
a
it
fake
is.
movie.
Yep.
It's a Netflix movie that made its way to theaters and cost $250 million. It's ridiculous.
This is the peak or the bottom
Yeah.
of the Rock's kind of style of movie.
I mean, he's going to need to do that A24 thing to...
Smashing Machine.
Yeah.
Which I'm looking forward to seeing him in
Absolutely.
that.
I think he can... If he wants to be a good...
I
try
think
and be
he
a
can
good
do
actor,
it. I think he can do it.
I'd just stop making your $250
Stop
million
with these
piece of
hack,
crap. Red Notice,
shitty
Red One.
red movies.
Just, I'd stop. Okay? I don't want it. Nobody wants it.
Nobody
clearly.
wants it. It's so crazy, and like we said, this movie is so expensive.
Yeah.
But the budget was bloated because he was late to set so often.
Yep.
Which I guess he has no remorse over.
No, he doesn't.
No, doesn't care.
And what did you get out of it? A movie that no one's watching because nobody cares. Because they look at the poster and think, ugh. That's just a resounding ugh.
Only a country that stupid would make Red One. It's like
and vote for Donald Trump again.
yeah, it's like the same thing. It's like unique
Yeah.
American stupidity.
Yeah.
That movie and arrogance.
Yes.
That movie would like.
Oh, people are definitely going to go see what.
People
see
will watch this.
Yeah,
It's
of
Christmas.
course.
It's Chris Evans. It's The Rock. It's
I don't know.
whatever.
The rest of this year, I mean, look, I'm looking forward to Wicked, and there's some other really great Oscar type hopefuls, but there's nothing else big that I'm really interested in.
There's no big December movie, is there?
Lord of the Rings,
There's Lord of the Rings. Oh, the Rohirrim.
War of the Rohirrim.
I'm a bit iffy. We'll see.
I mean, we'll see, but beyond that's like Sonic the Hedgehog 3.
I don't watch those movies.
Cool. We'll wrap up this segment with his first trailer for Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning. Looks amazing. Hell yeah.
Aid is catching up to Tom Cruise now.
I think so.
He looks
But
like an old man now.
In a good way. I think if this is the final reckoning and it looks like that Ethan Hunt, he won't die, but I think he will I think you might pull a sort of a No Time to Die with an asterisk where he'll get into a big scenario. Oh no, is he going to die? And then the end is like, actually he's still alive. And he goes and runs away into the horizon or whatever.
Can I say something about these movies?
Mm.
You can already hear the vibe. I've not even started.
It's already there.
I really respect how they're made action-wise, and they're thrilling, and they're so cleverly written. But knowing what you know about Tom Cruise and the weird... I mean, obviously what he does in these movies is amazing.
Yeah.
At entertainment. But knowing what we know about him and the weird cult he's in...
Yeah.
And the movies text themselves how they elevate Ethan Hunt to this Jesus-like figure.
Yeah, he's like the most coolest man in the world and everything.
It makes me like cringe and it makes me uncomfortable.
I think
and it's even in the best ones.
Yeah.
I can never get over that feeling that it's creepy and wrong.
Sometimes I think because we know that stuff about him, it does affect it a little bit.
But the weird thing is, and I'm a hypocrite, Chrissy, because I didn't feel that way for Top Gun Maverick. For some reason, I was like completely on board with
Because
that.
I think with Maverick, he had enough moments where people just went, "We don't like you, we don't want you." He's like, "Fair enough," and just kind of moves on with that. Whereas I think with Mission Impossible, they say, "You can't do this," and he says, "But what if I can?" They go, "God damn it, he's right."
I
he just goes on and does it.
I feel like there's a weird arrogance and worship thing to the whole series, especially in the later movies. Not to discount how well made they are. They are super well made and thrilling.
Yeah.
But I can't really get emotionally attached in any way because of that aspect. And it's no one's really talked about it, like, you know, as far as film fans, I think. So I might be completely alone with these thoughts.
No, I think,
but I feel that way.
I think where I can kind of accept it a bit more is because at least the character in the movies, Tom Cruise is perfectly willing to make him look ridiculous sometimes. Like, to put him in dangerous situations, to have him be shot and stabbed and blown apart and, like, thrown across buildings.
No, it's not like The Rock. It's not vanity. It's a different kind of thing.
Well, that's what
vanity.
I'm saying, is that I can forego that because at least I'm watching a character who I still feel is relatively vulnerable in some way.
Right.
While still being, like, righteous or whatever. Whereas I don't feel that in, say, the Fast and Furious movies, which have gone on as long as the Mission Impossible movies.
No, but that's what I'm saying. Those movies are not this is well made.
Yeah,
so
and I think that that ends up making people kind of forget about
I
certain
could see
aspects.
that, but for me, it's like...
You can't really see
it's creepy and weird.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, I can also...
Not judging anyone who doesn't...
No.
I actually wish I didn't think about that.
I wish I didn't know.
Yeah.
But it's there.
But it's there for me, so...
And I think it's always been there, and I think it'll ever go
But
away.
I am... Still, I will watch that movie.
Hell yeah, let's go. Do you want to move on
Yeah.
to The Thing? We've been here long enough. Look, 2 weeks of catch up, it's going to do that to you.
Yep.
The Thing is Gladiator 2. Do you want to talk about what we like about the first one, first off?
Well, the first one was like a sword and sandals epic made at the highest level Hollywood budget possible.
Relatively, yeah.
Yeah. And it was, it had a powerhouse performance by Russell Crowe. It had like kind of an emotional and thrilling story that anyone can get into. And the film
won Best Picture.
Yeah. And the film
Best Actor.
The film itself embodies the kind of platonic ideal of like macho poetry.
Absolutely. It's the best. It's one of those dad movies.
It's the best dad movie possible, and like,
even though my dad doesn't really like the first movie.
That's really interesting.
We rewatched it before second one, and he enjoys it enough, but he's never been that taken with Russell Crowe's performance, for one. Never really felt like he was doing something big. Maybe because we're Australian, so we watch him and we're just like, I don't know, man. He doesn't really, like, a lot of people are like, oh, he's so stoic or whatever. We're just looking at him as like, man, I've seen like 50 dudes like him at a pub. Like, he doesn't really strike me as being so distinctly like, oh my God, he's so different. He just kind of seems a bit too normal.
But I don't think I'll say against that. I don't think he's supposed to be like the best version of your manly self.
Yeah, I get that,
and like you can project onto that.
Yeah,
and that's why I think it's a genius performance.
I think that we don't really project as much onto that. We see that and we go, okay, but that's it.
Yeah, but I get swept away when I watch it. Joaquin Phoenix is like just a freak in it.
Oh,
he's awesome.
Insane, yeah.
It's one of his best performances ever.
And it kind of did for the Sword and Sandals movie what Pirates did
for
3
Pirates,
years. It brought back...
Well, they have the same theme song at a certain point.
Exactly, yeah. It's, Hans Zimmer doing it. It's exactly the same, actually.
Yeah.
But they brought back something that... sort of like a throwback to its kind of classic Hollywood genre that people thought was dead and buried.
And it predated... Well, you could say it invented the template that Lord of the Rings and Game of Thrones kind of picked up on in terms of like fantasy, sword, epic... Like
Gladiator.
Yeah, definitely.
Fantasy
aesthetic, like the aesthetic of it and everything. I don't know, the Hans Zimmer score.
I think the score does most of the heavy lifting, actually, because that's my biggest problem with the first movie. Is that the script is not there, which is confirmed because they didn't have it when they were shooting.
No, they were rewriting it and stuff.
And you can kind of see where the Maximus stuff is really good because they were very organic with it. They were coming up with it on the fly. But the Lucilla and Commodus stuff, where they're just talking about how, super sad they are, or how much Rome means to them, it gets very laborious. Particularly rewatching it, it kind of does feel very repetitive because it's scene after scene of them talking about the dream that was Rome and how Lucilla particularly, and Roger Ebert said this at the time, that too many of the characters have overwhelming senses of being very sad and morose, which they want us to feel like that is efficient character writing, but it just kind of feels very one-dimensional because I have been dying all the time. It's like, okay, I don't really buy it. That's the thing. That's the only thing kind of draws me back, is that the script on a fundamental level dialogue-wise is not really there, but story-wise, it barrels along through to tell something that's just very simple. And I think that's where it works best for me.
Whereas it has a sense of catharsis too to it at the end, I think.
Yeah.
It's a very satisfying ending.
That's what I think definitely does the heavy lifting. Is that the ending makes you think, oh, okay, it has that poignancy to it.
And it could be cheesy. I suppose some people find it cheesy, I suppose. But to me, it's done with like proper conviction and it's sincere.
Yeah. I mean, that's Ridley Scott. He takes something that could very well be ridiculous and just goes, oh no, I know what this is. I'm just going to do it anyway. And it's so matter of fact, you kind of respect it in that way.
Yeah, yeah. And it's iconic. It's an iconic movie for good reason.
Yeah.
Are you not entertained,
24 years it took them to make this sequel.
Yeah, and so now we've got Gladiator 2, which follows Russell Crowe's son, obviously.
Yeah. See, I was...
Paul Mescal.
That would have been a spoiler if they hadn't already put it in the trailer. Yeah. And I think that was already a fan theory that...
Well, it's like what else could it be?
Well, yeah. So Lucius,
like a random gladiator.
If you remember from the first movie, he's the kid
Who runs
that Russell Crowe talks to like once.
Yeah.
So Paul Mescal plays him. His name's Lucius.
Yeah.
And this story is interesting because he starts his journey kind of on the same level as Russell Crowe, but not really. What seems to be the strange with this is that, okay, so it's a revenge story, again, that Lucius, something bad happens to him, so he enacts on revenge to become a gladiator, to take back that sort of power for himself or whatever.
Yeah.
But they split Lucius's, the Maximus character into two people. So the gladiator revenge side of things, that's Paul Mescal.
Yeah.
The former general turned into hopeful revolutionary who wants to take
who has a powerful sense of dignity about him.
Yes, that is Pedro Pascal's character.
Yeah.
But the difference is that, well, the problem is that in this movie tries to pit them two together. That Paul Mescal is wanting to take vengeance on Pedro Pascal.
Yeah.
But it isn't until sort of like halfway through that he completely changes that, almost on a dime, just because his mother is involved. His mother, Connie Nielsen, who's from the first movie, she's one of the only actors returning from the first film. She's involved with Pedro Pascal now.
Yeah.
But I never really got a good sense on their relationship too much to say that, oh, they're absolutely in love. He just kind of felt like he was there. I took my dad to go see this, and he wasn't really taken with Pedro Pascal. He just thought, he seems kind of lost. Like he seems kind of uncomfortable most of the movie. Maybe that's intentional, but I also think it's character writing that I just didn't really feel like he was all that integral, except for Paul Mescal to be wanting to take revengeance on him.
I think with that, speaking to that, the first one is powerful because Russell Crowe is avenging a betrayal.
Yes.
And in this one, he's not betrayed. It was kind of the impersonal war machine just ran over his neighborhood.
Yeah.
And now he wants revenge. And that is not really powerful.
No.
In the same way, because he wasn't betrayed. He was just a victim.
Yeah.
And it's like, but there's not that personal sense of righting a wrong done to you as much.
And I didn't feel as taken with Paul Mescal's story. In fact,
it's not as resonant, but it's too similar at the same time.
I like Paul Mescal as an actor.
Yeah, he's great, but he's
you watch him in After Sun, he's brilliant. All of Us Strangers is heartbreaking, terrific film.
He is brilliant at like subtle acting.
Yeah.
And in this, he's kind of too he's not in touch with the grand mythic stoic thing.
No,
I don't think
he's got a great physical presence.
He's got a great physical presence, and it's not like he's delivering a bad performance at all.
No,
but I don't think he's really in touch with like what Ridley Scott is going for.
I mean, Ridley Scott himself is not exactly,
but he's not. He's
not even the same filmmaker he was 24 years ago.
Yeah, he's not. So you can see like Paul Mescal isn't embodying that kind of macho poetry that Russell Crowe did.
Yeah,
to the same, but they're kind of trying. But it's not really hitting.
Well, that's what I'm talking about, is that I feel like because they are very clearly looked at what worked from the first movie and how can we sort of deconstruct it and then rebuild it. I don't think that really works. And it's the same problem that I have with some other legacy sequels. This idea that your new movie is not necessarily a new story. It almost feels like a new Gladiator movie. That it's not a new story that's set within the world. It's just the next Gladiator film. So we have to hit the same points. We have to hit the same character beats. Hell, even like...
He has to be in an arena, as a gladiator.
Hell, even Paul Mescal has an African based best mate that he teams
Who
up
buys
with.
him, right? Yeah.
Yeah, well, not even buys him, but, in the first movie, Russell Crowe has Djamon Hounsou.
Right, yeah.
In this movie, he has... I don't remember who the actor is. I've seen him in something or other. But he has that.
Oh, the healer guy or whatever, yeah.
No, the healer guy. He's like his former leader or whatever. But it's just this idea of seeing him teamed up with yet another African bloke in the gladiator arena
they're just,
for their first fight.
yeah,
I'm like, oh, really? We're doing this again?
There's just a sense that the first one is a large shadow, casts a large shadow, and they feel like they can't get too far away from what people liked about the first one, but they have to continue the story at the same time.
I got over that initially, but then they work back in Maximus's specific quotes, his armor, his sword, literally everything he ever did in the first movie.
It's a little too... The movie's a bit too self-conscious about the real world loving Maximus as a film character.
Like the audience is so taken with,
But in that real world...
Why would anyone remember?
Like he was well regarded.
And even the first film, he ends with saying, Marcus had this dream that was Rome, make sure that happens. And they go, you gotcha. Did they do it? Nope. Nothing else, nothing changed. In fact, everything got worse.
Yeah.
So why would anyone remember him if no one did anything of what he told them to do?
Well, yeah, exactly.
And this happens in Roman history. If someone rises up against the sort of main power, then they strip that person's name entirely from the record, so no one remembers them.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what they try to do with this movie. His name is struck from the records of gladiators who have fallen in the arena. But then it's almost like, the gladiators themselves remember him as being this great leader or whatever. It's like, why would they remember him?
Yeah.
Wouldn't a lot of them have already died?
Time ago.
And my thing is, I said this to my dad, where's Djamon Hounsou?
That's what I was wondering too.
Why is he not in this movie? He would have been so important. If he rocked up because there's a healer dude in the film, who I really like that character.
Yeah, he was cool.
Really interesting sort of dude in the film. If that guy was Djamon Hounsou, who's like, I actually knew your dad, and I'll tell you specifically what he did because I was there and I remember him and I'm still alive to this day. And you go, oh my god, it's the guy from the first movie.
And Djamon Hounsou, always a welcome presence.
Absolutely. And he wouldn't have died like he does in pretty much every other movie he's in.
Yeah.
At least I would have hoped that he wouldn't have. But he was scheduling conflicts and couldn't do it, so that's it.
But outside of regarding it as a sequel, continuation from the first one, the movie itself is entertaining in fits and starts.
Yeah.
Overall, it's sort of boring.
What did you think about the gladiator bits? The sort of big...
Cool, he can do good action.
Yep.
Yeah, I like...
it's unrealistic as hell.
Yeah, it's campy.
Yeah.
It's campier than the original.
Oh, absolutely.
Imagine the original flooding the Colosseum with sharks. That wouldn't have happened.
I think they had the idea of doing the rhino battle in the first movie, but they couldn't afford it.
Yeah, so it's it's a little wackier. Denzel is just a straight up... He's like Alonzo from Training Day.
So Denzel Washington is in this movie.
He's great.
And he feels like he's in a completely different film from everyone else.
I think Denzel... I feel like he kind of knows what he should be doing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's what I felt.
He feels confident in his performance. He knows what level to play it at.
He's the best part of the film.
Yeah,
for me,
I think this movie, it's not his best performance, but it's kind of proof that he's a genius actor because he knows exactly how to play it.
Because he can come in and you just go,
and
what are you doing?
He does enough of his Denzel-isms without it feeling too modern.
Yeah, he felt kind of cheeky.
Yeah,
like he was doing stuff and you're just like, what are you doing?
It fit like the campier kind of sillier tone, which this movie is.
Ridley has already kind of danced with that a little bit, particularly with Napoleon, where that was trying to be a big historical sort of epic, but it was also trying to be really funny. And I didn't think that balance worked there because I don't think Joaquin Phoenix was all the way on board for that. Whereas I think Denzel is 100% on board for that, but he's not even the main character of the film. He's a supporting character turned sort of, not villainous, but he's definitely got his own sort of plot to be enacted. He's not a cut and paste version of Oliver Reed's character from the first movie, where he's the guy that purchases the main character.
The visual palette was a downgrade. I mean, it looked very dark,
Surprisingly,
muddy.
because
First one was very vibrant and beautiful.
it was shot on film, but it's the same cinematographer, which I was
Really?
very surprised by.
But Napoleon looked like really
Not
muddy
as,
too.
Not as Napoleon. John Matheson.
No, I mean Napoleon looked visually like dark.
Well, yeah, I think that's Ridley Scott's style at this point.
It's a bit of a bummer. I mean, it's
I rewatched Prometheus and Alien Covenant fairly recently.
Yeah.
And Prometheus was the first Ridley Scott movie that he shot digitally.
yeah.
He shot it on like red cameras that were U-View back in the day. And while not being especially like overwhelmingly good looking, it still has a crispness to it.
Yeah, it was pretty sleek.
The
It was
colors,
cool.
the colors really pop, like
Yeah.
yellow, red, particularly the
Yeah.
sort of like neon type of colors. Even they really stand
Yeah.
out. But then you watch Covenant, and it lacks a lot of that.
It was very like desaturated or
yeah,
something.
it's very sort of steely, very dark.
Yeah.
especially.
And his movies have mostly been like that since then.
Yeah,
And I don't know if it's actually because he's getting old and his eyes are just different. I
it's
don't
just,
know.
Well, he already had a particular style when he was shooting on film, but I think he's just gotten taken with, well, we're shooting on 4K cameras, so that's good, right? It's like, yeah, but you know that color grading still works, right?
Yeah.
And I think that was the difference, is that back in the day he would light scenes particularly well, and that was pretty much all you needed to do. Like, you use a certain type of film stock, you light it really well, and boom, you've got a good, great looking film.
Yeah.
Like, I don't like Legend.
Obviously,
movie did in the 80s, but it's gorgeous.
I have no problem with dark on its own. Like Alien 1 is visually very dark,
Yes.
but it's beautiful
Because
and
has
it's purposeful.
It has that texture to it when
it has a
you
texture.
have light coming
and
through.
and it serves the suspense. Gladiator 2, I don't know why the color is turned down so much.
I think
it's-
it's just his style, and I don't like it anymore.
At a certain point, it was kind of boring
I
to
also
watch.
it was kind of weird. I don't know if you noticed this as well. Did you ever notice that some characters seemed out of focus?
I didn't notice that specifically.
There was sometimes when they would have a dialogue scene,
Yeah,
and then I'm watching them as they're talking, and then suddenly the camera just kind of slightly goes out of focus, just ever so slightly. Maybe I'm more sensitive to this type of thing.
yeah, maybe.
But it was very odd. There was also some weird frame rate sort of changes in sort of like lower light scenes, which I know that John Matheson has done before in other movies.
Right.
But I also thought, like, what has John Matheson done as a cinematographer recently? He shot Logan
Oh,
fairly
right.
recently.
Yeah,
He also shot Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness. I
Yeah.
think it was his most recent movie, as far as I know. So he's been a good cinematographer, but he doesn't bring to the table the same kind of thing that Roger Deakins does,
Yeah.
where he has his own style, and it's very singular and very beautiful in that
Yeah.
way.
You hire Roger
Matheson-
Deakins to be Roger Deakins.
Yeah, Matheson does whatever the director's doing, and I think honestly, this is just what Ridley Scott movies look like now.
It could have been
And it's,
for efficiency reasons, just
sometimes,
because
yeah.
I feel like the way he makes movies now, it's efficient.
Yeah.
Like he shot this in just 51 days, which is
Yeah,
crazy.
really.
Yeah, he did.
Wow.
So
For a $210 million budget, that is
I feel like
insane.
at this point he just loves making movies, but he just wants
yeah.
to make them, pump them out.
Yeah.
And this feels kind of pumped out.
I won't say that I don't like this movie.
No,
But
I
I
liked it
wasn't-
okay.
I think that it started really interestingly, and then it never really evolved enough for me. It kind of built up to a sort of a final showdown that I thought was visually, like, action choreography and production design, costume design, all on point. But I didn't feel anything for it. And we're talking about with the first movie is that even though I'm not the biggest fan of it,
Yeah.
on a dialogue level, on a sort of like basic screenwriting level, I still think the story works because the actors are fully committed to trying to make it work no matter what.
Yeah.
And I think that the story still functions enough to the point where you get to Maximus and Commodus fighting and you feel like it's a proper, real showdown the whole movie's building
it's
towards.
personal.
But not to really spoil anything, but Pedro Pascal is obviously set up to be the sort of main thing that Paul Mescal wants to get after.
Yeah.
And then that is resolved so quickly.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there thinking, there's probably 45 minutes left to this movie. How? Why?
It almost has to like restart not restart, but the momentum is really halted. And Yeah, I think you can't say enough good things about the music of the first one as well.
Yes, Hans Zimmer's score
And Lisa
is
Gerard's
brilliant. Oh yeah,
songs.
the "Now We Are Free" song.
God, I
which,
love that song. And
I
they
will
use
say
this.
there was a bit of a problem that we had with this with Gladiator 2,
Yeah.
and this might be very personal.
Yeah.
In our screening, while we're lining up, they were playing the music as we're lining up.
Yeah.
Which they've done before in other screenings. I think they did that for when I went to go see No Time to Die.
Right.
That's cool. It's fun. It's nice, and they did it for Mission Impossible as well. And then we get into the movie. We got there really early. We sat down, and they gave us like food or whatever to eat beforehand. You know, have a nice chat with my dad about whatever. And then everyone starts filing in, and they say, "Okay, hi, thanks for coming" or whatever. And you expect them to do like trailers or something, and say, "Oh, we've got a little performance piece. We're going to be playing 3 songs from the movie, and an extra song." We're like, "Oh, okay." So we had to sit there. While not even when everyone's filing in, when everyone's already sat down ready to start the film, they play the same songs that they'd already been performing in the line. So Now We Are Free and Elysium and another one. And then they have some bloke came out who I think could probably tell them, "Hey, I've actually gone to singing classes." He wasn't that great. In fact, he was very flat. What they sang wasn't even a song from the film. Do you remember the end of Step Brothers?
No.
When Will Ferrell sings a song to the entire Catalina wine mixer crowd, the "Time to Say Goodbye,"
Oh, right, yeah.
in Italian.
Yeah.
This dude sang that, and I'm sitting there like, what are we doing? Why are we watching some bloke sing a song that's not even from this movie? That, unfortunately, to me, I only thought, why is he singing the song from Step Brothers?
Oh, Jesus.
It was very weird.
So bad.
While I love the music from the first movie, by the time that we started this movie,
Yeah.
I thought if I have to listen to Now We Are Free again, which we did at the end of the film,
Yeah.
I was bored. I was not taken with it at all in the way that I was hoping I could be.
But it made me realize, because they played that track and it stands out so much. I mean, aside from your poor experience, because you're like, wow, the rest of the music in this movie wasn't memorable at all.
No, because it wasn't Hans Zimmer.
Well, yeah, they didn't even try and use those like motifs and themes from the first movie, except at the very end. And the last shot is
end.
Russell Crowe's hand on the wheat.
No spoilers there, but like
Whatever.
probably the most famous shot.
It's the most famous shot ever.
It's the first shot of the first
Yeah,
movie.
and it's just like, I feel like they weren't confident enough in the movie's own story to be strong enough to have a good ending.
Yeah.
So they had to like pull
That's
this
a very
with the music
Yeah.
from the first one to make you feel something.
yeah.
But
It's like, hey, get it? It's like the first movie. I'm like,
yeah,
yeah, I know.
And it's like, I
the
love
whole
the
movie
first,
has just been like that.
I love the first movie, but like you're just cribbing the first movie, the scenes, the songs as the last thing before the credits.
Hans Zimmer said that he didn't want to come back for this movie. His reasoning was, I didn't want to repeat myself, but I will push back on old Zimmer there. So you didn't want to repeat yourself for the sequel to Gladiator, and yet you still said yes to Pirates 1 to 4 and both Dune films.
And the Batman movies.
And the Batman movies and Lion King. He came back for the remake. Well,
Yeah.
that's definitely repeating yourself. Hell, the score was exactly note for note the same.
Yeah,
Except it had a new Beyonce song.
But maybe at this point he is genuinely sick of repeating himself.
I think also, I don't think his reasoning is even sound. I think he just didn't want to do it.
No, fair enough.
I think he just said, nah, I'm good.
Why couldn't he say that? I just didn't feel like it.
Well, yeah, I would have respected that because he's
So
Zimmer.
what?
He doesn't care.
He can do what he wants.
But this reason, I didn't want to repeat myself. That's bullshit, man. Just say straight up, I just didn't really feel it. I don't care enough. Harry Gregson Williams, I taught him back in the day.
Yeah.
He's one of my guys.
Yeah.
He was part of my studio or whatever. He can go off and do a perfectly serviceable job. And that's what the music is. It's serviceable.
Yeah.
It's exciting enough in the big action scenes, but it never has that moment where if you're watching the first film, even if you're not taken with the story emotionally, you can still sit back and go, damn, that music is popping off. It is just so like, dun, 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 dun. Like, oh, okay, I'm excited now.
I feel like you kind of gave a review of the movie.
That's pretty much it.
That's pretty much the same as the movie.
I mean, is there anything more really? I mean, I liked Joseph Quinn. I like
he's good.
I like the two emperors. I thought they were very fun. The second one who's got
syphilis brain.
and he's making a monkey a senator or whatever.
That really happened, apparently.
Yeah, well, it wasn't a monkey. My dad actually leaned over and said
Caligula.
he made a horse a senator.
Yeah, which is great.
Which, playing fast and loose with Roman history, I expect that from Ridley Scott
Yeah.
and Gladiator. One thing I will note is, do you know May Kalamaui?
Who's that?
She is in Moon Knight. She was the female lead in Moon
Oh,
Knight.
yeah.
She was cast in this movie, and in some of the trailers you can see.
Oh, was she the Palestinian actress who they didn't use at all?
Yes, great optics there. So you
Really
announce
weird.
that you have a Palestinian, I think American actress,
Yeah.
be in this movie, and not just in the background or whatever. She's in the trailer. You can see her being sort of
Who was
part
she
of the whole.
supposed to? What was her role supposed
Apparently, she was meant to have a sort of main romantic interest role. I think probably related to Paul Mescal.
to be? Right.
I would imagine that he would have been involved with her in some context.
Yeah.
Maybe she was a advisor to the emperors or something like that, or a handmaiden to Lucilla or something like that. But she's been entirely removed from this movie, which, because she's Palestinian as well, that is not good optics, particularly with what's going on in the world right now. So I don't know what the hell the methodology there was. If it's a Melissa Barrera situation, ugh, no, screw that. Don't do that. Before spoilers, do you want to give a rating?
For Gladiator 2?
Yeah, thumbs up.
I'll give it 6 thumbs up out of 10.
Probably 5 for me.
Yeah, that's fair. 5, 6.
My brother is a big fan of the first movie. He's a big fan of Hans Zimmer. We've gone to see his music in concert, and I told him the music's not really there, so I can't really even say.
I'd say I like Denzel. a lot,
Yes.
So that's why I'll give it a 6.
Denzel definitely makes the movie for me. Paul Mescal is fine.
He's perfectly fine, but I think
Yeah.
in this kind of role, he doesn't shine.
I like how we also have not mentioned Connie Nielsen, mainly because
Yeah, what's there to say?
she's not great in either movie. She's fine, but she's just kind of a bit.
She's
In
all
both
right.
films now, she's a little wooden to me.
Yeah, she's all right.
She's all right. She's just
just
there.
all right.
Yeah, that's kind of this movie for me. It's all right.
It's all right.
Spoilers, not much really spoilers there. As we said, Lucius is Maximus' son. That was revealed in the trailers. Denzel Washington is the villain, essentially. Like, he becomes the villain completely by the end of the movie, which I thought was a cool twist, but it would have been much better if you had laid that groundwork throughout the entire movie instead of just saying to Pedro Pascal, hey, you're going to die like 2/3 of the way through.
I think
for
they make
no reason.
they make Pedro Pascal a bit too noble for you to buy him as a target of revenge.
Yeah.
He's a bit too noble and good.
And even when he gets home to Rome, my dad pointed out, like, he just seems to hate his life. He's like,
Yeah,
this
so
sucks.
you can't get invested.
I don't want to do this anymore.
You can't get invested in Paul Mescal killing him.
No.
It's impossible
By
because
the time
you're like, well, he didn't really want to do it. From when they're burning the carcasses, he's fed up.
Yeah.
Like, he's like, burn him. Like, we reclaim this for Rome, whatever.
Yeah.
Like, he's just like, well, yeah, he doesn't really want to do it.
From the go, you're like, oh, you're going to die, aren't you? He's already dead.
Yeah.
But he's just a dead kind of character.
Yeah.
Which sucks because it's Pedro Pascal. He's a very likable, energetic actor that people love.
Yeah.
And I love as well.
Yeah.
But he's kind of just there for this movie.
Yeah, he's okay. I mean, yeah.
A lot of actors
he's never
I felt,
bad.
No.
But
He's not even given sort of like a crazy role like Joseph Quinn
No.
and Fred Heckender.
yeah.
Can't say his last name. But they're the two emperors, and they're just insane. They're off the walls, crazy or whatever. They're really honoring, I think, what Joaquin Phoenix did in the first movie.
Yeah.
And Pedro's just there, and that's the problem with splitting that Maximus character into two different characters. Is that I don't think
weaken the whole thing.
I don't think you really disservice both actors.
Yeah.
Because now they're not playing a full, complete, three-dimensional character.
Yeah.
Connie Nielsen dies. Pedro Pascal dies. Denzel got his hand cut off. I thought that was
And then
pretty.
chopped in half.
I thought it was pretty cool.
That was cool death. There was some
and
good gore in this.
Russell Crowe's not in the movie. Of course he's not.
No,
'cause
his
he's
hand
dead.
is at the end.
Yeah,
It's
his
archival
hand,
footage.
That's about it. There's not really anything else to spoil for it.
Yeah.
It's kind of
There
more
wasn't
of
really a real need to do this.
I don't feel like either. There's sort of, it's been 24 years. It's like, okay, and this is what we got. I felt the same way, honestly, where I didn't hate it, but I didn't love it with Beetlejuice, new Beetlejuice.
Yeah, I've heard that. Yeah.
Because I was never really that taken with the first movie, but I watched it for the first time recently and thought, that was okay. That was nice and cute. It was really weird.
Yeah.
Fine. It was a nice little time capsule to a 88 Tim Burton or whatever before Batman. But then I watched the new one. It's like, it is trying to be a legacy sequel, trying to sometimes do its new thing, but not really. And then by the end, feels like it's repeating too much of the first movie. And then I just don't feel like I've gone on a particularly amazing journey or felt like what you've told me or shown me is all that important. Like, this was absolutely the best story we could come up with. It's like, really?
Yeah.
Gonna go back to the drawing board on some of this stuff? I don't know. It's just,
Yeah. I mean, considering how much I hated Napoleon,
yeah.
this wasn't too bad.
No, this is way better than
that
Napoleon.
was horrible. Genuinely a horrible
I
watch.
would watch this again, maybe with my brother. Maybe. But Napoleon, they released like a director's cut. I'm like, no.
4 hours
thank
of that
you.
shit. Get fucked. Are you kidding me?
Yeah. Last Ridley Scott movie I liked was Last Duel.
Yeah, that was good.
But that was good because it was written really, really well.
Yeah.
I think that Ridley Scott does best when he's got a great screenwriter.
And the characters were fairly complex in that.
Yeah. But he's worked with David Scarpa, who's the writer of Gladiator II. He was also the writer of Napoleon.
Oh.
And when I heard that, I was like, oh, no.
Well, Napoleon had a really weird agenda or something.
Yeah.
This one, yeah, it's just a straightforward action sequel.
Yeah.
Like, nothing really to fuck up. And they didn't. It
Yeah.
just wasn't that exciting.
Oh, that's it.
Yeah.
I think we're pretty much out of energy for that. It's like, yeah, there you go. Would you like to move on?
Let's go surfing now. Everybody's learning how. Come on a safari with me.
Yeah, what are we up to now?
We're up to the last segment, which is channel surfing. This is just where we talk about stuff that we've watched, stuff that we've enjoyed recently.
Finally saw The Substance.
Yes. Did you watch that before Halloween or just after it?
No, it was just before, actually, just before,
Okay,
a couple of
yeah.
days before.
I don't like watching horror movies after Halloween. It feels weird.
Yeah.
What did you think?
Well, everything everyone said about it was true. It's
Yeah, it
absolutely
is.
insane.
It is batshit.
It's
man.
batshit. It's genuinely, its themes are disturbing. I
Yeah.
mean, not just the gore, but the themes are like unsettling.
What was your favorite scene in the movie? I'm hoping it's the same one as mine.
Oh, my favorite scene in the movie?
There's one in particular, this whole sequence that I just went, brilliant.
It's probably, there's a few really good scenes in it, but I think it's got to just be the end when she's showing up on stage.
That was amazing.
Yeah, and she's-
although I think I had a bad experience because most of my audience walked out by that point.
Yeah. I mean, it was
wanted to
amazing.
see it
It
in
was
theaters,
just, it was amazing because it just kept pushing the envelope.
That is true.
And then it just spat on the envelope and then it pissed on it.
I really want to watch it next year on my own.
Yeah.
On that sort of way, because watching in the theater where people slowly walked out made me feel like, oh, okay. Like it made me enjoy it less.
But I
unfortunately.
liked it because it felt like from the filmmaker, like a genuine expression of anger.
Yeah.
Like
oh, yeah,
I could
definitely.
feel she's like the artist is angry.
Did you watch her movie Revenge from a couple of years ago?
No, I've heard it's good.
Same thing, where
Yeah.
it's like because she's French,
Yeah.
it's got this real sort of passionate anger and this sort of like fuck you to a
Yeah.
whole gender essentially. I'm like, and even I'm sitting there like, yeah, fuck man.
Yeah, I mean this is fueled by real deep feelings. She doesn't care if you like it or not. Like
No.
she really has got like something to say.
My favorite sequence in the whole film was when Demi Moore's wanted to go on the date.
That was amazing, actually.
That whole bit where she just keeps,
Yeah.
she dresses herself up. She thinks, "Yep, I've got the confidence. I've made myself look good." And even I'm sitting there like, "Yeah, you look fantastic. You're
Yeah.
Demi Moore. You still look good to this day."
And then she overdoes it, and
Yeah.
she hates what she
She
sees.
overcorrects. She changes her look. She messes up her makeup because she keeps getting reminded of the younger self that she has. And I'm like, oh,
That bit was, yeah, like there was no gore or anything, but that bit was very disturbing to watch as well.
that's what I was thinking. Is like it is a disturbing film without needing to go to that point. It still goes to that point by
Yeah.
the end because it does what it does, but it also still sets up how painful it is to just live as this kind of person and to have these kinds of thoughts of thinking that, oh, my past is gone.
And also just that idea
My
of
prime
like,
is gone. Sorry, yeah, my past is prime.
the sexy image of things that we see on TV or whatever are crafted by these really disgusting brain dead men. Like
Gross was Dennis
gross.
Quaid.
Yeah.
Horrible.
So it's amazing that it's able to just endless shots of the female form movement and all that
Loves
shit.
butts.
And it's just like it is not arousing at all.
No.
But like obviously objectively they're hot, but you're watching it and it's like not disgusting, but it's like deadening.
Yeah,
You know,
because
but deliberately so.
Margaret Qualley starts out and you're looking at me, and I'm thinking like, damn, I've never even seen her like this. This is amazing. But then you slowly realize like,
because she's
almost really kind of gross almost.
Yeah, because she's just playing it as like a dead behind the eyes sex object.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Deliberately.
Yeah,
like
yeah,
without humanity.
I watched before Halloween, actually I think it was the day before, 25 years old, Blair Witch Project, which I don't think...
The first one?
Yeah, I don't think I've ever actually watched properly.
No, neither have I.
I've only seen bits and pieces. It's amazing.
Yeah.
25 years on, I think when you watch it with headphones on, like on alone, I think maybe back in the day in the theater would have been incredible. But it is really cool because I see all the DNA of things that try to redo it, like the whole found footage genre. But the fact that it was doing it well before anyone else, they put like a lot of time and effort into really thinking about like very specific stuff, just like audio. Just making the audio, because the visuals are crap because they're shooting it on like really
deliberately
dodgy home video cameras or whatever. But because the audio is so good and so crisp, it becomes, it's like, you know, how we have whole genres now of like ASMR or what's the director, the person who does all We're All Going to the World's Fair and I Saw the TV Glow or Skin in the Rink. Those sorts of it's like analog horror, something like that. This predates them all. Like this is what started all of that. So when you watch it, it is legitimately scary. And by the end, sure, nothing happens. You don't see anything. But it's not the point, because you keep hearing, like they go run into complete darkness and then they suddenly yell out, "What the hell is that?" And you're like, "What is it?" Like you don't know.
But that's what like fear is. It's the anticipation of something dreadful.
And they were inspired by Jaws. That's one of the inspirations they drew from. And I'm like, yeah, I can see that, I can hear that, I can feel that. So that was great. I really enjoyed doing
but it seems like plausible, because aren't they like film students and they're going to the woods? So the premise itself, it makes sense that they have a camera and they're doing that.
Was even realistic because the filmmakers didn't even tell the actors specifically what they'd be doing per day. They left clues for them of like, this is what the scene is, here's the pages, shoot it yourself. They were shooting most of that movie themselves.
Yeah.
So it's even got that realistic element that these actors signed up for this movie not really knowing what they were doing, essentially, and then bonded really well as well. Solid recommend for Blair Witch Project. I finally finished Agatha All Along, I think the day after Halloween.
Yeah.
Highly recommend that.
I'm going to be watching that.
Really, really solid. Maybe not... You could try and do it now, but I would actually... I'm going to probably rewatch it next Halloween. Like the whole thing from start to finish. I think that week to week was a little frustrating, to be honest, because I wasn't sure of where it was going. But then the last 2 episodes happen, no spoilers there, totally changed the entire show for me. And I'm sitting there like, whoa, okay. I didn't even realize that was happening. Yeah, you genuinely don't know.
Yeah.
And that has been the most... It's honestly... This and Loki and WandaVision are now my top 3. Yeah. Like the way that they've developed their stories, even over 1 or 2 seasons, has been so brilliant. And I think that's where, circling back, like that's where Marvel television should go. Like, don't do these sorts of enormous things that go out of control and they try and be movies, but 8 episodes. I don't like that.
Yeah.
Try and just do a really cool, weird story for maybe even only $50 million. That's fine.
Yeah.
Because guess what? A good story, it doesn't matter how expensive it is. A good story is still a good story.
Yeah, that's it.
It could be a text-based story. It doesn't matter. Do you watch anything else?
Just starting Cobra Kai, the last season. It just released yesterday, the last part. It was off to a really good start. Only 4 episodes left. Really enjoyed that show. And they're going to do a movie.
Yes. Karate Kid
which
Legends?
I assume will follow on from whatever the ending of this is.
Yeah.
They're setting up a really epic kind of last bit. They're going all out with the, competition and all these different factions and stuff. Still charming, good characters. That's about it.
Okay. Yeah. I was sick for like a week straight after Halloween. I lost my voice entirely.
Yeah.
So I didn't go out and watch anything. I pretty much sat at home and played games mostly. But there were 2 films that came out on Halloween. Robert Zemeckis is Here, which I didn't go watch because I thought, I'll wait for that one.
Yeah.
But the other one was Saturday Night, which is the
SNL.
Yes.
How was it?
1975. The first episode of how they filmed it.
Yeah.
It was great.
Yeah, it looked fun.
I'd already pretty much
There's
decided.
a lot of cocaine in the movie.
No, actually.
That
Surprisingly.
must have been the later years.
Yeah, it was very much so. George Carlin is mostly the cocaine guy because he was,
Is George Carlin
Yes.
a character in it?
Yeah.
Oh.
Matthew Rhys plays him.
How is he as George Carlin?
He's really good, but he's not a lot. He doesn't do a lot in the movie.
Okay.
He's only in it for like 3 or so scenes.
Okay.
I would say that my only main problem with it is because it's trying to do so many different things. So you have all these different characters and real life people who rock up because the first episode was absolute chaos.
Yeah, the whole show's chaos.
Yeah, essentially the whole first season, really. You do have the sense that maybe some of the characters or some of the people are a little underserved. The main part of it is Lorne Michaels, Gabriel LaBelle as Lorne Michaels, which I think is good because if you enjoy the show and you go back and watch the first couple of episodes or whatever, you already can see what Andy Kaufman was like. You already know who Jim Henson is. You can see that out there. There's not a lot of information, a lot of footage of Lorne Michaels.
Yeah.
Because he's always been the producer in
There's
the background.
not a pop culture idea of Lorne Michaels.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I know who Chevy Chase is. I've seen Chevy
Yeah.
Chase's movies. I've watched Community multiple times.
Yeah.
I know who Dan Aykroyd is.
Yeah.
I even know who Garrett Morris is.
Yeah.
But Lorne has always been a mystery figure. So I think the movie, by centering on him, it kind of creates this perfect little encapsulation of what the entire show has always been. Like, he literally just spells it out right in front of you. And it was the first time I've watched SNL for years now. It's the first time I actually kind of got what SNL was supposed to be about.
Cool.
Because he literally just says, this is what it is. And I'm like, oh, I didn't even realize that. Like, it totally changed my brain. And when Nicholas Brown shows up as Andy Kaufman,
Yeah.
incredible. I was almost like crying because of how brilliant it is. I love, if you ever want to know what SNL really was, just look up Andy Kaufman Mighty Mouse.
All right.
It is the weirdest thing I've ever seen, but it's also brilliant. Totally recommend Saturday Night. I think it's out now on digital. I will probably.
Wow, I thought it just came out in cinemas.
Yeah, it didn't do too well.
Oh, shit.
Didn't find an audience, but it's gotten some really good positive response. I think it'll do very well streaming wise because people will go back to it and go, oh yeah, this was pretty good. Where was this the whole time? I'm like, yeah, it was there.
I think the title's not great.
Well, they
for
changed it
getting-
from SNL since 1975, which I think was worse because it's
Yeah,
it
but
says
just
SNL.
Saturday Night is like...
Yeah.
Whatever.
Well, that's kind of the whole premise of the show, and also that's not even what SNL wasn't called. SNL, it was called NBC Saturday Night.
Oh,
When it
okay.
first aired, so that's why.
It's an apt title, but I guess if you're thinking in terms of getting people to watch it in the cinema,
yeah.
bit tough.
Yeah, and also the movie doesn't go too far from the trailer, I will say. If you've seen the trailer,
I liked the trailer, yeah.
you've kind of seen most of, not the best bits,
Yeah.
but most of the
You get
movie,
the
it's just that.
Yeah.
Which is not a terrible thing, but
Yeah, I think that covers it.
yeah, exactly. So we are Movies Are Back. You can find us, you can email us at moviesarebackpodcast@gmail.com. You can find me at Christopher-John on Blue Sky now, because I want to plug that more than anything.
Yep.
Christopher.John95 on Instagram. You can find my writing at the Curb and Nova Stream. Where can the people find you, Rhys?
Right here.
Exactly.
And sometimes I write for Isolated Nation.
Sometimes, but mostly
very
just
rarely.
right
but
here.
Mostly, I'm right here, baby.
All right. Thank you very much, everyone. See ya.
Boy.